Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Robbie Krager, the Flip Flop Flipper. And guys, today you're in for a treat. This guy next to me, he's a pretty big deal and he's really important to my life and my story. And I'm really happy to be able to sit down and talk with Thibault Adrien. And we'll get into our origin story and how we met in a little while. But it's a pretty good story. Thibault, thank you very much for sitting down and talking to us.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that. Do you remember coming to my house back in, I think it was 2012?
Yeah.
You had just started a fund, Lafayette,
yeah.
and raised some money, and you were already buying some houses around the country.
Yeah.
And so he shows up at my house, and I've heard this story probably a dozen times back then, where he had deep pockets and wanted to buy foreclosures, and I went to the foreclosure sale for the 15 years before that, so I had a reputation for that. And we ended up buying 600 or 700 houses, I think, in the state of Florida.
Yeah. No, it's a great story. Yes, like back then, in 2011, I knew not much about real estate. 2010, I didn't know much about real estate, but I knew that there was a massive issue, massive problem. The banks owned a lot of assets they were not supposed to own in the first place.
Right.
They were doing a terrible job at managing their portfolios of REOs, because that's not what they are supposed to do. They are not landlords. And so I thought that I could try to convince a few investors, mostly European investors, initially that's where I had connections, to invest in the US and help the banks offload those homes from their balance sheets, renovate them, and rent them out. But I knew nobody, and so I had to meet with property managers in Tampa, in Phoenix. I know those two markets could be good, so that's where I started. And then I had to rely on people making good introductions. And one day, magically, somebody said, you have to meet with Robbie Krager. and so yeah, that's how I showed up to your door, and the rest is history. We bought great homes together.
Yeah.
That was a critical time, 2011, 2012, for me, for Lafayette, to get off the ground and to show our investors, show to the world that the single family home asset class was not a dead asset class, that no, the prices were not going to go down to zero. It doesn't make sense. Those were real assets, with real cash flow potential. And people were just traumatized by what had happened with the subprime crisis. And they forgot that those assets were real assets that families needed to live in, and so they had intrinsic value. And so you helped me with that, so I'm very obviously thankful for all the deals we've done together.
Yeah, and it was a very tough time, being a small entrepreneur at the time. So for me, when you showed up, it was a blessing. It was a real blessing. It was one where when you left, I remember talking to Brandon Quant and saying, "Is this guy real?" and sure enough, I think we met on a Thursday, and on a Monday we were buying houses. Yeah. It was so quick, you guys. It was really amazing. The part of the story, Thibault, that I really like is how you started without knowing much about real estate, and you started big, much bigger than most anybody out here will ever start. I think the vast majority of the people that want to get into real estate are thinking, I don't have even $100,000 to go buy a small house and fix it up. Yeah. You thought about the same problem. We're in the same situation that they were in, but just went for it in a much bigger scale.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
How did you have that idea to?
Yeah, so I knew I was studying the macro, so I knew that there was this huge inventory of homes that the banks were going to have to sell.
Yeah.
And what I was decently good at was getting organized, making investment decisions, because I was working in the investment world, not in real estate, but in the investment world. And so I knew how to create disciplined investment decision processes, and then make the right connections in local markets, find somebody like you, Robbie, and the right property managers in each market and get their advice on where to buy and compare the stories from one property manager to the other, from one broker to the other, to try to get to the truth. And so I didn't talk only to you when I got to Orlando. I'm sorry to break the news, but, but initially, like, I talked to a bunch of people and I compared the stories, and I felt, and I was able to see like who was the most credible, and I was lucky to pick you. I had a good feeling about you, about our potential partnership, and so to go back to how I did it, once I met enough people, and once I started to buy a few homes, I was able to show the story to some investors and tell them we can do this in a much bigger way, because it's very important to get diversification. I'm not going to get like every single investment decisions right. I'm going to make some mistakes, but if we do it in a diversified way, overall we're going to be okay, because the whole market is going to appreciate. And once you have diversification, you can also convince banks to back you, because initially when we were buying together, no banks would be.
It was all cash.
All cash, we knew, and I was hoping that once we would have a diversified portfolio across different markets, the portfolio would very much look like a commercial real estate portfolio that banks would be willing to finance. And so that's how I did it. Yeah.
That's so amazing. And now you've stayed in the trenches. So we bought 600 or 700 houses together, and then I moved to Puerto Rico eventually. You've continued to do this, and I'm very curious about where do you see the market going from here? And then later I'd like to talk about if you have still any of the houses that we bought together. Yeah. But for now, where do you see this market going from here, 2026 and beyond?
Yeah. So, I can restart from 2014, let's say, it's because the years where we bought a lot together were the sort of distressed years when we were buying from the banks. So that's 2012, 2015, let's say. And then 2015, 2020, is a period where the asset class started to institutionalize itself. Larger investors got into the game. Some went public, Invitation Homes, American Homes for Rent, and capital markets sort of signed off on this new asset class. It became more competitive. It became harder for the smaller guys like us to be competitive, and so we had to reinvent ourselves a few times. But one of the big change we made was, starting in 2019, we started to focus on new construction. And you asked about how does that evolve from 2026 and beyond. I think new construction is going to remain a big theme. There is definitely not enough supply in the US, not enough homes for families, especially for our demographics, people aged between 30 and 50 years old who need more space because they have kids. The apartment inventory doesn't fit their need anymore, so they need single family homes, and we don't have enough. So new supply is a big theme. And starting in 2019, we started to talk to builders about buying from them some inventory that they wouldn't otherwise build if it was not for rent. And so we showed them our build for rent strategy, and they agreed with us that it could make sense to sell to us at a discount to retail prices, because they sell to us in bulk in advance. They have 100 or 200 homes to sell in one community. They know they have one very reliable buyer, so it reduces their execution risk, their turnover, their absorption rates, and everything. So it made sense. Then it became very competitive, and so in order to avoid the competition, we went the next level, and we started our own home building operations.
Wow.
So that was a key to continue to be relevant in this market right now, because interest rates went up after COVID, 2022, 2023. So buying existing homes didn't make any sense anymore. The retail bid is much stronger. By the way, there is a lot of talks right now that maybe Wall Street buyers would be stealing homes from Main Street, and I don't think that's true. Main Street was outbidding. The retail buyers, homeowners are outbidding us 98% of the time.
That's always been the case too, right? Real estate investors have to buy at a discount, otherwise we're not investing. We're just throwing money down the drain, right?
Exactly, 100%, exactly. So we have to be disciplined in the way we make investment decisions. And when rates went up, it made us even less competitive because we are very sensitive to rates, much less so than homeowners. And so we went deep into the home building strategy. We lined up a bunch of lots. So we have like 1,200 lots right now that we need to build on. We have already like 1,200 lots, 1,200 build-to-rent homes already off the ground, and another 1,200 that we need to build on.
Wow.
So it keeps us busy, which is a good thing because the buying existing homes doesn't make much sense anymore. So we had to really slow down or even shut down this part of the business. But building new homes is getting us busy and very excited. What's coming next? I mean, there is a lot of stress right now in the industry because of those discussions in Washington right now about a ban against single-family home investors.
Yeah.
It's, I think, totally fine that we welcome like the lawmakers' effort to regulate our industry. We have no problem with that. It's a sign that we are a maturing industry. It's okay. What the current debate is about is whether or not like build-to-rents should get a clean exemption from this ban. And we believe, and everybody that thinks that affordability is a problem should believe that more supply helps with affordability issues.
Yeah, I struggle every time I hear the comments that are against more supply.
Yeah.
To me, it's like they just don't understand economics.
Yes.
Supply and demand, more supply, better price.
Exactly. So if lawmakers in DC agree that we need more supply because we need to address the affordability issue, which I think is the intent, they should create a clean exemption for the build-to-rent investment strategy. And right now, we don't know because the Senate voted for a forced sale provision that would force investors to sell after 7 years. And no investors want to take this type of like timing risk.
It's a very short time.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to also sell the homes one by one to individual homeowners. And when you build a 200-unit community, trying to attract like individual homeowners in the rental community is tough. Like you have to sell one by one within a specific time frame. Like no investor will want to do this. So that's anti-supply. So let's see how where Congress ends up. But we hope it's going to be a true pro-supply bill that's going to win, and that we'll be able to keep building and delivering new homes to the market, because I think that's what the market needs.
Wow.
So we'll see.
Well, I mean, that's man. So that this law that Trump is proposing, and I don't know if it's passed yet, but it's a potential disaster.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's he. I think.
Well, he's the mouthpiece, right? He's saying it.
Yes, but I mean, the executive order issued by the president was clearly carving out build to rent. So the intent was good.
Yeah.
And somehow in the Senate, at some point, they came up with this like 7-year like forced sale provision, which I understand the idea behind it, but I honestly think it's anti-supply, and that I hope that they will remove it. I think the House got it. The House proposed an amended version for it, and hopefully the people will understand that supply is important. Well,
I hope that you guys do understand supply and demand. More supply means better price. So supply is important. And when somebody does a build to rent, you're not taking supply of anything. You're building something that's brand new. So why they would regulate that in that way, a little bit baffling. What about the portfolio that we were involved with? Do you still own any of those properties? Do you even know?
Absolutely. I know, I do know. I mean, we've been selling from time to time some assets, but overall we are like long-term holders. We think those assets are very relevant for like local families in Orlando, Jacksonville, Tampa, and so we continue to try to provide the best possible like property management services, and so we hang on to those assets for the long run. We've been selling here and there, but I'm sure the vast majority of the portfolio is still...
You still have it. That's wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
I look back on those days with very fond memories. It was truly a blessing that you showed up at my house one day, Thibault. Completely unexpected.
Yeah.
You know, these things happen when you're in business, and this was one of those times where God brought someone in to our orbit, and it just worked out really well.
Yeah, and it's reciprocal. Like I was very happy to.
Yeah, I literally came to this conference. I told you because my friend invited me, and I was like, I don't really have time to go. I'm doing other events and speaking, and then I saw you were speaking, and I'm like, okay, I'll go. I saw it as a sign that I should come and so that we could have this conversation. So I know that you're very time crunched and that you have to go jump on an airplane. So I want to thank you very much.
Thank you, Robbie.
It's really good to see you again. And I'll share this with you. And yeah, man, let's try and stay in touch.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you, Robbie.
Thank you.